people are interested, we'd love to have a section where we kind of do an open Q&A where people can give some of their own comments and questions and stuff. Tonight, we're just testing this out, so it's mainly kind of starting off with a conversation between me and Rebbe Levi. I guess we should start with introductions. My name is Yisrael Goldstein. I live in Crown Heights, and I've been running this little thing called the Let's Talk Moshiach podcast, which traditionally has this fake background, black and blue checkers behind me. So I'm glad I got that set up for tonight's discussion. And hopefully if it works out and it comes out nicely and teichendik and constructive, I'd love to be able to share this with everyone on the actual channel. So if everything works out, I hope that that works with everyone joining on the meeting tonight. And so me and our guest speaker tonight, our host actually, is Rebbe Levi Polichenko. Is that how I pronounce it? And you're in, you said the West Coast. Where are you located, more or less? Oh, I believe you're muted. Hang on, I have to make you. Is it possible to make both of us Oh, here we go. I can ask you to unmute. And
yeah,
there we go. Okay.
So
you are located in?
I'm located in Los Angeles, California.
Oh, Los Angeles, California, Ira Kodesh.
Yeah.
Wonderful, excellent.
Ira Kodesh.
So I'm not sure if you had a chance to see any of the previous clips in this series, but I try to open up the conversation on the topics of, particularly the topics that some of us Chabad Chassidim have some sensitivities about, or a tough subject, tough questions, the elephants in the room, the things that get shoved under the rug. And instead of ending up in a situation where the years keep going on and the subject still remains kind of awkward, it might be very constructive of as many of us as possible to kind of get together, sit down, talk it out, and figure it out. So often enough, we've had the pattern happening in past years where whenever we try to have such conversations,
Second, Yisrael. I don't think we can hear you.
Okay, sorry, testing. Does anyone hear me?
Yeah, good.
Okay, good, excellent. If anyone doesn't hear me, please use the raise your hand feature, which I believe users are able to do. And you should be able to kind of signal if something's wrong. I'm not sure if the chat is enabled. If anyone wants to test that, go ahead and test. If anyone wants to test the raise a hand feature, hopefully that works as well. Welcome, Rebbe Simcha. Welcome on board. Glad to have you here and looking forward to joining you in. But first, let's just quickly get into a little bit of the conversation we had earlier today, Rebbe Levi, and then we'll open it up to more Q&A and more thoughts. Levi, should I catch things up, or do you want to kind of pick us up where we left off, or how do you want to get back into where we were holding in the thread of discussion?
So if I remember correctly, we were talking about Ba'if Namaskabo, yeah? Is that the...
Yes, the very contentious topic of Ba'if Namaskabo. So what are your thoughts about it, if any? Let's start with that.
Okay, so I started off this the understanding of Ba'if Namaskabo as who's shaykh to, is everybody shaykh to Mashiach, and the Rebbe clearly wants us to, right, that it's the foundation of it is essentially in Chaysar and Beis of where the Rebbe brings Ba'if Namaskabo, and that's where most people get this idea from. And the part is that the Rebbe wants us to, the new shlichus is to get everybody ready, Kabbalah Mashiach Tzidkenu, and the Rebbe puts in as a sort of caveat that it has to be Ba'if Namaskabo. So Yadrin. And so that's an understanding that some people are not going to be shaykh to Mashiach or something like that, and it's going to be merachik and whatever it is. That was my initial understanding of it. Then I learned the whole Sikha, and learning the Sikha. Actually, today when we were discussing it, I got a much better understanding of what the Rebbe was saying in the Sikha. If you read the whole paragraph from the beginning to the end, the Rebbe is saying that the shluchim should get together and should make achotos tevos about how to prepare not only the shluchim themselves but also the balabatim that the shluchim have in each one of their makom shluchos. And the Rebbe says, how do you do that? To explain to them, to be masber, the inyan of Mashiach and Teresh B'Ksav, the way it's written in Teresh B'Ksav and Teresh B'Alpeh, Bo'ofen HaMiskabel, to every single person with this sichloi, and I forgot the other word that the Rebbe uses. And the Rebbe finishes off that B'cholos, it should be in Yonagol, teaching in Yonagol Mashiach. And then the next paragraph, the Rebbe says how every single yid on Islam Klau is shaykh to this thing because this is the generation, this is the avodah of this generation, and therefore any yid that is found in this generation is shaykh to that avodah. So my new understanding, the thing that I got new, what was made clear to me this time that I learned, that I was looking at the Sikha, that paragraph, is that the Rebbe is talking about the vart of the Eifen HaMiskabel is like Chanech Lanara Pidarkai, that you should teach a child according to his way. What does that mean? That means you should teach them Torah, you should teach them mitzvahs. However, certain children need to be taught in a slower way. Certain children could be taught in a faster way, in a more haskaladik way. Some of them have to be more chagas. All these different things. Obviously, the Rebbe says about Chachma bin Adas, but the term Ba'ofen HaMiskabel, my understanding, learning the Sikha today, is that you teach it to every single yid. It's shaykh to every single yid, and how do you teach it to every single yid? So you have to change it. Some yidden, you teach them in a clear way that this is what it says in Teresh B'Ksav, this is what it says in Teresh B'Alpeh. You can learn it from the source. And some people you have to embellish it. You have to do nice mashalim, nice stories. You have to bring it in a much different, much simpler, so to speak, much simpler way.
Okay, fair enough. Sounds good. And by the way, if anyone has that image of the Sikha, I think I have it on WhatsApp. I'm just having a hard time dragging it here into Zoom. But we could probably share the screen with that, and so that everyone can have a look at the snippet. It's very important to see the sources of what we're talking about as we're speaking about them. But okay, let's say Naniach, fair enough. Rebbe Lazar, let me allow you to chime in over here. I see you wanted to say something. I'm allowing you to open your mic.
Oh, you guys can hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
How you guys doing? I just want to chime in that a lot of times we get sidetracked with these two words, Eifen HaMiskabel. I think we have to remember, Eifen HaMiskabel is about teaching in Yonagol Mashiach. And that has to be in Eifen HaMiskabel. And that should be a discussion how to do that. But there's also an Indian, for example, the Rebbe says, Torach lefarsim l'chol Anshe Adair, to publicize to all the Anshe Adair that Hashem shows someone who's a Baal Bechira, who's without any comparison greater than all the other people, and he is a Navi Adair, and he's the one giving us directions, and he's giving us Nevuas till the main Nevuah he knows about. So there the directive was to publicize. Eifen HaMiskabel is not said there. Now, obviously, when you publicize something, you want people to get the message. So, talk to Mevinim in advertising, I guess Madison Avenue, whatever it is. How do we get a message? How do we publicize it? And obviously, when you publicize it to a kindergarten class, it's not going to be the same like a Moshe Zakainim, and not going to be the same in New York or Los Angeles or Africa or Eretz Yisrael. There's different types of persumim. I imagine these days things like to come out of Gem or JLI with some dramatic music, a nice video, and maybe showing the Rebbe's various nevuas that Papayil happened, the Gashmias. There are ways to do this, but this whole Eifen HaMiskabel is talking about a certain Indian, which is when you teach a lot of things we have to do. There's presumim, there's whatever it is. Then there's derech hayeshar, an extremely integral part is teaching about Geula Mashiach, and that teaching, the Rebbe made a point of saying, I guess even more than you would understand on your own. Should dafka be ba'ofen hamaskabel l'tli sichloi shalachet echad ba'ofen the chacham being the das. So I think we have to be careful just not to get sidetracked with this ofen hamaskabel, like Ilu. Again, it's a little, I don't want to say narrow, but it's talking about a specific part of the general Mashiach campaign, and that is teaching on Yom Nagol Mashiach. Then there is Persumim. Then there's Inyan of Stam of, I don't know, let's say billboards would be a person, or PR, whatever you want to call it. You know, there I think that the general concept of Vayfen Hamaskabel, like anything else we do. I mean, when you do mitzvah tank, should be Vayfen Hamaskabel. You know, people have conversations, talk, is Vayfen Hamaskabel, have loud music and parades. We obviously feel, yes, some could argue maybe people don't like it, you're blocking traffic, and make some, we can have a conversation. But everything we do should be Vayfen Hamaskabel. I think an additional thing, but that shouldn't sidetrack us from Pirsumim and other things where, and I think the one that I think I made earlier today in the chat is, if we have a hayra to do something, chas v'shalom, for a chassid to say, we can't do what the Rebbe said, the world is ready, and that we should do because it's going to turn people off. I think the problem is on us to figure out how to do it in a way that won't turn people off. But the answer can't be, don't go there, because if you're going to tell people, I'll take something more benign, that the Rebbe is the Novi Hadar, which that's black and white. No one could say the Rebbe didn't say that. The most you could say is he meant the Friedrich Rebbe. Fine, so publicize the Friedrich Rebbe Lamazagin. But clearly, to be Mefarsim, we have Vayirah, to be Mefarsim to all the people that there's this person who's a Nasi Hadar and a Navi Hadar. So yeah, do that in Oifen HaMaskabel. But if one Chas v'Shalom for a Chassid to say, oh, that we can't do. But if we do that, it's going to turn off my whole community. The Rebbe is telling us that is our job to do it. How to do it? That's a good question. Okay, let's talk which community you're in. We could figure out the demographics, how to do it. But you know, like Lahavdil Ronald Reagan had on his, who the Rebbe had a very big Chaviva score. B'shaitai has on his, I think on his desk, says it can be done. Don't say it can't be done. It can be done. And if the Rebbe says that this is our job, it can be done. That's my point for now.
Okay, fair enough. So is there a particular concern about that? I'll ask also Rebbe Lazar, but also back to Rebbe Levi. So you brought up something very important from the Sikha, that we need to be mefarsim the message, and it's important that it be niskabel. So is there a particular concern about that, about how that's happening, or how it's being done, or how it's not being done? And I guess I have one or two phrasings of how I would describe what the issue is. But Levi, let me pass the mic back to you. In your words, what have you found might have been an issue about this in the past or currently that you feel is a problem about this in Lubavitch or whoever it might be?
My experience. So last year I was on shlichus, and I had some time to fabring with his fellow shluchim, and I don't want to say any names, obviously.
Yeah, probably better not to mention names. Probably.
Yeah, but we're fabricating about this inyan about Mashiach and not so much the urgency of B'chla Mashiach, meaning Mashiach. That's obviously something that everybody has is Shag B'Fiv Karl. Everybody has, it's one of the Yud Gimelikim, but about this specifically, about we're at a time where the Aveda is to be Mekabel Pnei Mashiach Tzidkenu. That is the Aveda. So I was having this discussion with the Shluchim, and this is before I had such an understanding of this inyan. And we were talking about the Ofen HaMaskabel. We were talking about this thing that the Rebbe is talking about that has to be the Ofen HaMaskabel. And so if you understand the Ofen HaMaskabel being that a person has to accept it, so yeah, you run a risk. What's the risk? The risk is if the person won't accept it, then that's a problem. So what are we going to do? We're just going to not talk about it. We're not going to approach that risk because we want to be safe. We want to be, right? Chabad, Lubavitch is very into, obviously to a certain extent, is very into being loving and welcoming and inviting. Why? So that every single Yid will see how beautiful Yiddishkeit is and what it will become a from Yid, right? That's the matter of most shluchim, is a round of applause for the whole world, that we push it to have, right, C teams, Kanai Nahar, over 3,000 teens, right, teenagers that you would think are the most cult to religion and all these things. You have 3,000 of them in 770. It's, yeah, 100%. However, being that we're so we like to be so safe and loving and warming and all these things, we don't like to approach very what's the word? Very sensitive.
Yeah.
Yes, very sensitive, very iffy topics like Mashiach in a way of Kabbalah. Because if we're saying we want Mashiach now, right, Mashiach is going to come, all these things is very nice, but once you get into, now that Aveda is Kabbalah when Mashiach came, like the Rebbe says, Mashiach is Shenda, and in Pashas and Mishpatim Nun Beis, the Rebbe is saying how the Mashiach is already, we already see the effects that Mashiach is having. Mashiach is already doing things to affect the world. That already gets a little, that's already stepping on eggshells, so to speak. Why? Because Mashiach is not here. Where's Mashiach? I don't see Mashiach. There's still bad things happening. All these things, though, you could say, you can ask good questions, and we don't have the answers to them. So what's the safest thing to do is to stay away from it and explain Ba'ofan HaMiskabel that these people are not going to be Mikabel. You don't know why, because you've never tried it, you've never gone there. We're going to be safe.
I hear. Yeah, I can understand this sentiment. So let's say if we are in such a conversation with Chassid, a Shliach, and I guess so you got the sense, or you got the feeling that that it was conclusive, that they were never going to go there, or that there was nothing to talk about, or that it's the end of the conversation, they never did speak about it, they never will speak about it. Maybe they didn't feel comfortable about it up to some point, but then maybe at some point they could get more warmed up and open to it. Was there any, what was so bad, I guess, about the situation? Worst case, they didn't feel like it, or maybe they were going to talk about it. Maybe they're working on it. Maybe they're working on getting closer towards there. What was your impression about that?
So this is a little controversial, so to speak.
That's why we're having this conversation.
Yeah. From my experience, shluchim don't like people coming to them and telling them that they're doing things wrong, and they don't like people telling them that you should be doing this instead of this. They don't like people telling them that, right? So I tried pushing. I said, Mivtza Tefillin, all these things that were controversial back then. This is why then we did it, and now we're not doing it. Lubavitch was never supposed to be safe, right? We do things, we jump, right? Our whole way we approach the world is is to go out and to change the world. What happened that all of a sudden now we just want to be safe? We just go back to doing the safe thing, to doing the thing that we know is okay, we know is right. So to answer your question about my conversation with the shluchim, is that my understanding is they're never going to go there, because then it means that they have to now face, and this is what I think is the root of a lot of people's of okay, I don't want to diagnose a bunch of people, but I think this is the root of problems that I see, is that there is trauma, right? Starting from Nun Aleph, Nun Beis, Nun Gimel, and Daled, precious years of the Rebbe pushing Mashiach and making it very clear, and then Nun Daled happened, and you had shluchim, you had people that you would think are there, but They have questions themselves, right? The Bo'efin HaMiskabel is in themselves. Right? The Rebbe started in the beginning of the paragraph, before the Rebbe said about the Shluchim should prepare the Balabatim, the Rebbe said the Shluchim should prepare themselves. Before you can, not before, but to get to your Balabatim, you have to be ready to jump. If you're not ready to jump, if you're scared, then you're not going to jump. So the reason why I think these people, not these people, whatever, to generalize, but the reason why I think the people the shluchim that I was having discussions with I don't think are ever going to get there unless there is unless there is people behind them supporting them, is because they're scared to jump.
Fair enough. I could hear that. I can understand how that would happen. In fact, if I were in their shoes, it's highly likely I would be part of that problem. Who here is a shliach? Are you, Rebbe Levi, where you are? You're doing shlichus where you are, or what's your if I may ask such a personal question?
Yes, I'm doing shlichus.
Oh,
I'm doing I'm teaching. I'm a melamed.
I'm curious how much have you so far? I'm sure it's still in the works, and you're probably still going to work on it more. But how much have you so far achieved in inspiring and awakening those that you have influence on, if you're Mohammeds or your students, whoever it is, to be all active and like it's really happening? Mashiach is mamash ot, and it's here. How is it going with your avodas Mashiach over there?
Yes, good. It's tough. It's definitely very tough, and it's a discussion more than things that you can do. Right? It's not. We can't make a program, can't make a nice event, and expect it to think it's a farbringen. It's a constant farbringen. And I do. I have. We had a farbringen, a few farbringens about this inyan, and we discussed it. We went through it. We learned. We talked. We had our issues. We spoke about our issues, Baruch Hashem. But I think that's my approach to this. Trying to get other people to be excited about it is going through the issues that we all have. I had these issues myself. I mean, to a much lesser extent, but there were issues that I understood, and we talked about it. And I'm still Baruch Hashem, with the help of my fellow friends and fellow family members. I'm still getting a better and bigger picture on this whole idea.
Great, amazing, excellent. It's very inspiring to hear your story. I live here in Crown Heights, and you would think, Chatzers Kotshenu, the Shchunas HaMelech, Kamsi Vashem Sabrocha, you would think that's mamosh, but guess what? It is true also. I mean, it's like the story of the two Odessas. There is this Crown Heights and there is that Crown Heights, and depending on which one you tune into, you could go to this Odessa or the other Odessa. But I often find myself in one and I often find myself in the other. And guess what? It could be mamash very, very tough, even here in Crown Heights. Sometimes I feel like I'm walking in a Mashiachville, and sometimes I feel like I'm walking down the street and like, wow, there are people out there in Yehupitzville and they're way more ahead of the game and ready for Mashiach than some of us Chevra are here in America, in New York, in Crown Heights, mamash around 770. We have way ways to go. And yeah, I've also dealt with a lot of these, Gimel Tammuz trauma, and how do we deal with it, and how do we work through all these issues. And I've tried to whatever extent I was able to open up the conversations and discuss it and talk about it with Chevra that I'm around, and that helps a lot. I was basically hoping and yearning to Chassid Machta Sviva, to make an environment where can we all support each other and be on the same page that, yeah, I'm behind you, you're behind me. Let's continue encouraging and spreading the message onwards. Okay, so here's how I would phrase the issue in my own words. I'm not sure if it's the same issue, maybe it's a completely separate issue, but what comes to my mind is like this. I'm not sure what happened to me in my journey of waking up from Bacherhood and deciding I got to take a stance in this situation. What's the story with the whole Moshiach thing? I ended up somewhere in Yehupitzville, not specifically in Mishiachistville and not specifically in Antiville. I have my guns aimed to both directions. So I have tinus here and I have tinus there. if we may, because we're bringing out the elephant in the rooms over here, I'm going to present one of my gripes I have with so-called the enthusiastic side, the Mashiach is coming now side, so to speak, side, if we could use such words, side. I don't like these categories and labels. But what I find is that maybe what helps a lot is to consider that chassid and that shliach as part of the audience rather as part of the staff. I don't mean to speak in demeaning ways, and this might be offensive to those, to those chassidim or to those shluchim, but we got to say it for what it is. If we find a chassid or a shliach who is not yet part of the staff, sort of thing, so to speak, is not yet ready to be with it with us and be on it and be part of it, and it's mamash kfira, oy vey, Ribono shel Olam. Our own Rebbe is saying words in the Sikha, and you're saying, no, I can't deal with it. Ribono shel Olam, warf maris von Lubavitch. What is this? Can this nicht verleiden? Plus, he wears a hat and a beard and a kapata, and he dares to call himself a chassid, a Lubavitch, a chassid of the Rebbe, and he's ignoring the Rebbe's words, and he's putting aside, and he can't deal with the Rebbe. Was is das? Was is? Yeah. We have that tendency, but we get a little too sharp with that. I think we get a little bit carried away. By now, it's already a habit. It's an ingrained. We're addicted to it almost. I've gone through this conditioning myself. I have hung around Lubavitch from Bacherhood all the way up to adulthood, to the younger manhood, etc. And I've heard and I've seen it all the time, and it conditioned me too. I also get triggered, and I also react in this way. If someone is wrong, then someone is wrong. If the Rebbe sagt, das ein sicher, the Rebbe sagt, das ein sicher. We get this gvura, we get this like what we are often mispair, that Chabad Lubavitchers are so much ashreinu matev chakenu, better than the Polishers and better than the Misnagdim. And why? Because they throw rocks and they make pashkevilim and they say varf maruis shaygets whatever, and they can't accept and they can't deal with mikuravim. And if someone is an epikuris, then he's an epikuris. But we are so much better. Why? Because we are open and we accept and we deal and we do miftzayim and we're mikarev and you mean mikareves to each and every yid. Except maybe our own fellow chassidim. If it's a guy in miftzayim, then we have to be nice and friendly and be mikarev to him. But if he's a guy that has a beard and a hat and he calls himself a shliach and he calls himself a Lubavitcher, v'chulu, then we don't have to be so nice to him. Then we can take the hammer, we can make a kardum lachtuchba out of the Rebbe's words, and we can bang them over the head with it. How dare you? How could you not? The Rebbe sagt azoyin, how could you not? But the Rebbe, the same Moshiach, Rebbe Melech HaMoshiach, that is wants to take us out of Golus, he is telling us, go ahead and do it with Bo'efen HaMiskabel. Now, in each situation, it depends with who you're talking about. You got to be Bo'efen HaMiskabel. If you're able to go further ahead with the guy and speak about it with him all the way at level 214, then go for it. But if you see that the guy is not going to go there, and he's never going to go there, and he's impossible, and he's forget about it, is this our sprach that we say, so it's a forget about it case, or it's never going to happen, or it can't work? Whatever happened to us being like, okay, you know what? The Rebbe is sending me a shlichus right here, right now. This shliach, this chassid, today is day one of who knows how many days that I have to work on him. Tzarich la'avod alav. We have to work on him. We have to come back, bring with him again, and inspire him again. What is taka the big deal about the Rebbe? What is taka the big deal about Mashiach? If we don't have those stars in our eyes, if we ourselves are dealing with issues about that, but we expect, hey, you must believe like I believe, hey, you must feel like I feel, then who says he will? Maybe he won't feel that way, but we could work on it. We often have a knee-jerk reaction that it's forget about it, and an anti is an anti, and it's impossible to work with them, and they're never going to get anywhere. So I have one random little thought about that, and then I want to take Rebbe Lazar's raised hand, and Levi, if you had some other thoughts about that. Stam, I have this random weird theory. It's partly hergesh, partly boich svara. My theory is that we all have this 5-year-old myth of how Moshiach is supposed to come, which looks something like suddenly the heavens open, and suddenly we hear doo, 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 and the shofar is blowing, and the clouds are opening up, and Moshiach comes down from the sky and pronounces Ani Melech HaMoshiach, and instantly, right away, the whole entire Klal Yisrael sees that, and they accept him as Melech HaMoshiach, and whatever. So I call this the fantastical fantasy Moshiach. Not to say, chas v'shalom, any kfira, that any of these things are not going to happen. Talk b'shofar gadol is a real thing. And Melech HaMoshiach announcing it to everyone, Higi Azman Go, is a real thing. And maybe even the phrase, Ani Melech HaMoshiach, is also a real thing. And all of these things are real. I'm not chas v'shalom saying kfira that they don't exist. But what I am saying is, I think that there is also a tzad, or a phase, or one of the tkufos of Moshiach coming and being nisgale, which is very much like the Rambam says, Olam kiminhagei noig. It's very much very in the world, in the normal, natural way of things happening, as if it's another day at work. So Chassidim of Lubavitch have one day sat down to yet another Farbrengen, yet another Sicha with the Rebbe, and the Rebbe started saying to them little hints and revelations that he might be or is or blatantly is Melech HaMoshiach, and we have to start revealing this and explaining this to the world. You know, this is not the usual thing that people are used to hearing. Wait a minute, I thought there's the sky opening up and Melech HaMoshiach coming down from the clouds. This one big Rebbe Tzaddik, Rebbe in Brooklyn, starts telling his Chassidim that he is Moshiach. That's not what we expected. That's not the movie that we were expecting to see, lahavdil. So in that fantasy Moshiach, what happens often, and I hear this a lot when I speak to Chassidim around the community. Oh yeah, this anti, forget about it. He's never gonna figure it out. Oh, that shliach, impossible. And those Yidden, forget about it. It's a stalemate. It's impossible to work with this. What we're basically saying is, let Moshiach come and save the situation. He will come down from the sky with a snap of his finger. He will make a miracle happen, and mitamol, everyone will realize that Mishachistim were right and antis were wrong, and everyone will applaud, and they will all bow down and say, Va'anachnu keirim. We're leaving it on the Eibishter, we're leaving it on the Rebbe to solve. But perhaps the Rebbe told us, tut als was ihr kennt. You know, so far, Nachayar went by, and Moshiach still hasn't revealed himself fully. Maybe we're waiting on the Eibishter, and we're waiting on Moshiach. But what if they are also pointing the finger to us, and they're waiting on us? Maybe it's not that easy for them to bring Moshiach, because it's not that easy for us to bring Moshiach. And we're both waiting at each other like this. No, you do. No, you do. Like the Gemara, that Shuvo Elai v'Shuvo Aleichem, and Yachid v'Rabim, Alocha Karabim, whatever. Point is, the Sichos of the Rebbe have both of these concepts in it. On the one hand, the Rebbe says, "Es is built to move on klal uklal. Mashiach should have already come long ago. It's not. We already finished everything that we have to do. There isn't something else more that we have to do. It's all finished. It's all done. It's completely on the Eibishter. We don't understand why it's the Eibishter's fault, basically." And then the Rebbe also says, weiter in the Sicha, muss sein, as da noch etwas, was man kann meises sein, oder noch etwas, was man kann tun, oder tut alles, was ihr kennt, und you finden Eitzes, wie soll zu tun, und was zu tun. Wait a minute, but Rebbe, I thought you just told us that there is nothing more to do, and it's all done, and it's finished. What are you telling us here? Maybe what the Rebbe is telling us, that Take, the Eibishter should bring Moshiach Takef Miyad right now, but also there is something more that we can do. Let's not leave the whole thing on the Rebbe and on the Eibishter to solve. Why is it so impossible for us to go over to this Chassid, to that Chassid, to this Shliach, to that Shliach, and help them along the journey? Yes, they're a so-called anti. Yes, they can't deal with it. Yes, it's hard on them. How many more years are we going to punch them in the face with that? It's almost like we're holding them back from making progress. If we're the real antis, okay? We're holding them back because we keep coming back to them, showing them the Sicha of the Rebbe. But look, it says on the page over here, look, you have to, you must, how could you not? And we're punching them in the face with that. How many years are we going to keep doing that? When can we get back to the table and say, okay, we had fun with that. It was fun doing the debating game. the I could rhetorically win you game, v'chulu v'chulu. When can we get back to Mikarev sein? You mean Mikareves? Sit down, Fabring. It's not a one-time deal that I'm right, you're wrong. It's a continuous deal of let's go on this journey and bring Moshiach. Adkan, my ramblings on this thought, but let me open up Rebbe Lazar Fish to share your thoughts, please. And then we're going right back to Levi.
I'm muted. Okay, a couple of things, very simple. Number one, the fantasy Mashiach, you mean the MBD Mashiach. The sky's opening up, everyone freedom, call it what it is. The MBD Mashiach, the Talk Moshiach, the Mashiach, the Mashiach that,
Exactly.
That's finally the magic moment we've all been waiting for. The sky's opening up, but and indeed that will happen. Also, what was the other thing I wanted to tell you? You said about that, and no, there was one other point you were making. You're giving a reference.
But leaving it up to the Rebbe to solve Lubavitch.
No. You said about snap it. You said with a snap of the finger, it's going to be a wave of the hand, not a snap of the finger. Let's get our terms straight. Okay, then again, your first point. Okay, so whatever. It's a closed group here. Not so. Okay, I'm going to say the more Gevuridik side of it. Just to explain the more Gevuridik side. The chiluk you asked, why do we treat a shliach or a fellow chassid worse than a guy in the street? So there is the concept, not by everyone, but by some, again, taking the Gevuridik approach, that it's yes, Rabbeinu Umechav, and that would have the end of it. So there is that concept that probably doesn't apply, but one could think is going in that kav, again, taking the Gevuridik away, whereas the guy on the street is totally not shaykh, that concept, because he has no das. And if you're dealing with someone who does know, someone who you know, who you know for a fact, knows the was by the Fabregid, the Chazid the Sichas, and knows the Sichas. And from deswegen, okay, so then there could be in the Sayin why he's different than the guy in the street. And Bechlal is different than the guy. I remember I heard from Aaron David Gant, the Mashpia, Marstown. People being Geraya that the Rebbe, when a girl came to the Rebbe with piercings and tattoos, and the Rebbe smiled at her and gave her another $1 and was ma'eded. So the Rebbe's not talking to the Bishvifka girl should be that way. People will say, look, you told me how to dress, look how nice the Rebbe is. It depends which direction you're coming from. So that's it's very different. Then there was some type, a part of the trauma after Gimel Tammuz was, it looks like I don't know who he is, but it looks like I'm the Zakin Sheba Chaburi here. I'm not sure how many were around. Was anyone around Gimel Tammuz time? You were around? How old? You were
6, 7 years old, whatever.
Okay, but I'm saying, but not like 20, unless you stock bunch, you were whatever. In any case, so there was a lot of 8 years old. So there was a lot of what was I was 1920. There was a lot of trauma, and rightfully so. We definitely sidetrack. Definitely, that was not part of the script. That was not an option. That was not shaykh. That was even that it should look, even the way, according to any interpretation, that there should be la'enei basar, even according to the state of New York, that this is right. That was totally. It was to say it caught us by beyond the shock. Beyond there's no word to describe it. A lot of trauma, and there was perhaps a sort of a movement to kind of get away from this, what was the mainstream understanding. And you could see this now lately, someone's been putting out these videos of the Fabregans, some of it have been posted on the chat, of what we would call mainstream mashpiyim. Certainly I could tell you the mainstream rabbonim of the large communities of Echnaz in Kfar Chabad, the Handel of Montreal, of the Marlowe in Crown Heights, wherever, Rebbe Montreal, in Australia, any Israel, every community, everywhere. Everywhere there was clearly and it's important that everyone should know that the Rebbe is Mashiach, and Rabbi Yoel was obviously spearheading this. And it was all based on the Rebbe. You listen to the Fabrenga. It wasn't like this would be a nice thing to do because we love our Rebbe and we're proud of him and we want him to be Mashiach, which, by the way, wouldn't be a wrong Chassidish hergish. There would be merit in that, but that wasn't what it was. It was going on the Rebbe's sichas and the Rebbe's answers and the Rebbe's idud and everything going on. And then Gimel Tammuz was a rough one, especially to someone like. There was what's the name here? One of the very, very big Maspiyim who was making a very big point how Gimel Thomas cannot not happen, and if it happens, and then when it happened, Takarov, when I wasn't in that position. I was 19 years old. I wasn't 60 years old, going around the whole world. So yeah, there was enough to easy and this and kind of, and there was a confusion. And there was a bit of a thing to maybe let's get away from anything that might be controversial and let's stick to what everyone is comfortable with. We spoke before, but I'm what everyone's comfortable with. Even though the Rebbe said it, let's do what everyone's comfortable with. So when people get upset, I think to the earlier point, people get upset at certain Lubavitchers and Dubas Lados, it could be coming from that place that the Sichus, you knew it then, you were saying it then. And again, the truth is it could be a matanim min hashamayim, a matanim from the Rebbe, why some of us have less of an asayin, some of us it's more clearer, and some of us it's not clearer and there's more. Just like Abba Mitzvah film, personally, it's not always easy to go in the street, in the supermarket. Are you Jewish? I'd much rather, when my son Reb Simcha's there, I tell him to do it. It's not so geschmack always. I'm also geschmack. I'm also this geschmack. Then there are some people, they first have a geschmack. They walk with the tefillin. There's no, first of the gasnius, there's nothing they like more, better than a good steak. They want it for the Yidam still. It's unbelievable for them. Right? But for me, it's a little bit harder. Some people, they can't. I do it for Payal. But some people don't do it at all. My head shliach, Shlomo McKinnon, he doesn't walk anywhere without tefillin. A guy wearing a yarmulke with a beard will ask him, and there are people who say, no, I forgot today. He'll ask anyone, did you put on tefillin? He's walking into cheder, he's walking into wherever, he's walking into a front place, he's walking around with tefillin in his hand. Did you put on tefillin? He has a geschmack in this. Or is this kashrus is so strong that whatever, his own feelings don't take a place. Everyone has their own, could be the also matanim in Shemayim, why you feel that way. But that's perhaps why we look at other, then there's something else. Then there's the Indian, we are someone who's living with the Sichas and living with, and including up to and including the Gimel, the Rebbe's Yidid Avichi with Mesiras Nefesh, Rebbe moving his whole body, and those of us who were here, B'Shas Maisa, and you guys who were kids, but if you're old enough to remember, but those who were B'Toichet Varim, and we understood what it meant when the Rebbe's coming out and he's moving, going like this, and making with his left hand, and Adi Yom Hazeh, we're koching zich, like Baruch Hashem, we're doing right now. Plus, it's not like it's like something on the side burner, but like things like this, making a podcast, making a Zoom, putting it on the front burner, spending our evening talking about this. So we'll buy a shul of a nash, and after davening saying Yechi, for example, which was the minig in 770, which was on the front of the Rebbe, and it was done continuously, was done in 770. And there's no richuk, it's a minion of Lubavitcher Chassidim. No, there's no one there is not a Lubavitcher. And you say Yechi in the shchuna, and the people get upset at you, like you're the horrible person. How dare you? How dare you say Yechi? And they get horribly offended. So you're asking, why do we get upset at other Chassidim? It's often the other way around. Like, what do you want from me? I'm doing what the Rebbe, like the onus is on you. Like, why aren't you responding? Why at least say, you know what? So as a chassid, it's not like we made these words up out of nowhere. It's talking about, I want to say the elephant in the room, like I heard from, I think I mentioned on the chat, Rav Shmuel said that all Chassidim, we all believe the same thing. The chiluk in Adam is the whether or not we say those particular 8 words. Okay, some of us feel like myself that those 8 words, again, because I was for over a year, I was standing in front of the Rebbe saying those 8 words, watching the Rebbe using the Gashmius, using every ounce, because the Rebbe could have stood up and danced if he wanted to, but for Poil in that situation, the Rebbe using all of his strength to be ma'ided it. So yeah, for me personally, those particular 8 words are extremely important and hold extreme significance. But whatever it is, but the bottom line is, okay, just the elephant in the room, the 8 words. If it is being said, I would think the least you could do is just be quiet and have some, and like many people do, and many people indeed take that road. Hey, you know what? You're saying this. LA Bechlal is a little bit like that, where no one really has very, very strong opinions. And besides for Mom, it's a couple of people, and even they say, don't make me say it, but if you want to say it, say it. They hear, they know there's something behind it. So I think that's number one, that there should be a not like we are, Nahagu Kovet Zalazeh, right, what you were saying before, taka should be avoided, or you're a dust or you're a yens. But I could hear where it comes from when there's something that's so important that people say, you b'chlal, you're being like, hello, could we at least talk about the sichas? I mean, I heard, I'm not going to say it here, even in the small group, but a very prominent Rav, a very prominent chassid, very, very prominent, was shown a certain sicha, and he said, "Oh, no, that's the New Testament." I won't tell you who it is, but you'd be surprised if I told you who. So you all heard of him. It's hard to take that. So if the reaction of that person is in the business kanchosid, whatever those that she was saying before, perhaps there's a place to that when someone is saying like that. Or I know, I think what happened with Rav Simcha that he was eating ice cream or something, and the shliach told him, the prominent shliach, a head shliach, told him, no, this, I think it was a head shliach. One of the head shliach, you're being mavada berurim. Simcha said, no, we finished the avodas haberurim. He says, what are you talking about? So he shows him the sikha. The Rebbe said, whatever we're doing right now is not avodas haberurim. That's already done. We finished the last dinner, and now it's avodah miyachedes, whatever it is. Ken is done. So he said, look what the Rebbe is saying. The Rebbe wrote this. The Rebbe said this. The Rebbe was magiyah. He printed it. Ken is done. Because in his mind, if we finish the avodas haberurim, we have the geula. I did Rebbe explain that indeed we should have the geula, and now we have an issue. Mashiach needs our help, etc. Okay. Certain people, just like you were saying, the 5-year-old vision, the MBD, what I'm calling the MBD vision of Mashiach, people have their vision of Mashiach. For example, this was an older person, the Beitin Chassidus about avodas haberurim, and this whole, and I knew that. I'm younger, and I also knew that. You finish avodas haberurim, it's over. And sometimes it's very hard if you didn't prompt kochzich in that particular sikha, and verbring about it, even if you did learn the sikha, you didn't verbring about it, you can't put that together. What do you mean we didn't finish? And that's why, perhaps one of the reasons why the Rebbe said Derech HaYeshara is to learn in Yonei Geula Mashiach, because these things have to be learned. You have to learn, what is avodas haberurim? What's made nigmur avodas haberurim? If so, what are we doing here? And the sikhs explain this, and it has to be learned and verbringed about and spoken about in venues such as this. All right, Adka. For now.
No, very well said. Very well said. Good points. I have some replies to it, but I first want to hand the mic to Levi to share with us any of thoughts about any of the above. And then Simcha, if you're still there, I'd like to give you a minute also.
Okay. There's a lot. So I have a few things to say. Number one, with regards to the whole response, the way we treat other people. Yeah, I think Rebbe Lezer had a lot of good things to say. And yeah. I want to add on that the reason why I know this with me personally before anybody really continued the discussion with me and didn't just bow out and put their head down and keep walking, but they had a discussion with me. Before that, I used to be very Mashiach, say it, whatever it is. I was a bacher. I'm still a bacher, but that as a bacher, that's your guy. You're going very hard, and the reason why I personally did that was because there's a sense of urgency, right? This is after Chav Ches Siva, Chav Ches Nisa, after Shimon, right? The Rebbe said a Sikha of I have already finished all of that. Now it's up to you. And what are we doing? We're still doing things from before the Rebbe talked about how there's a new Abaydan, how we already finished all that, and now we're doing something new of Kabbalah Mashiach Tzidkenu. So if it's all up to us, if everything that is left is for us to do something by ourselves, right, without the Rebbe having to mission then what are we doing? Let's do it. The Rebbe said there's a bunch of sikhs, and it's very interesting because after that sikha, right, the Rebbe said do everything that you can do, and then what the Chassidim do? They have no idea what to do. They ask the Rebbe what to do. And the Rebbe went. The Rebbe heard them. The Rebbe's like, okay, I hear you. You have no idea what to do. Fine. So he spent the next 2 years, Pashat, every single Shabbos, every single Sikha, Pashat, Mashiach, talking about Mashiach and explaining, basically all the most of the Nanago Mashiach is for those 2 years, for those years after. And when you hear that, when you hear the Rebbe says, all after, the Rebbe is telling you to do all that you can, this is what you should do. This is what you should be doing. So, yeah, what are you supposed to be doing? Obviously, you're supposed to be doing this. Yeah, but you have to do it. Yeah. There are certain people that they're stuck. They're stuck in a mindset. Why are they stuck in a mindset? Again, like I said, because it's safe. Because this is a safe thing to do. This is what everybody. There's probably the only people that are gonna be against me are Goyim, are the anti-Semites, are the white supremacists, are the black Hebrew Israelites. And those are the only people that are gonna be against me. And for those people, I can say Kishim Tachlis. Why? Because they're Goyim, right? So I'm gonna be safe. I'm gonna do the things that everybody agrees with me. And again, I think it comes down to that. You're scared to jump, but you don't. But the reason why I'm trying to push you is because that is what you need to do. You want Mashiach so badly. I want you to recognize that all you gotta do, the only thing, one thing you gotta do is just take that leap, just jump, just do it. And I heard a nice talk from Rabbi Wolf Shlita. He gave, I forgot when it was. He was talking about Mismach Geula Geula, yeah. Sorry, Geula Tefillah, right? Why we say Gal Yisrael, whatever. So he said that when I think it was Rebbe or Rabbi, one of the two said that when they did it, it was very shmak, right? They had Pashat a beautiful day. Now he explained it very nicely. He said, "What was the right? That every single you don't think that every single day they were saying Geula Tefillah? Of course they were. They're big Tanaim, Amraim, all these things, big Rabbanim. But then what was the whole right? The whole right was that they took that leap of faith. That one time, or however, once or twice, they decided, I don't care what anybody else has to say. I'm gonna jump. I'm gonna take that leap of faith. And they said, I'm saying the same concept, but they did. They took the jump. This Magol Tefillah, they Pashit did, and they went and they did the controversial thing, and they said Pashit. The best. That was the best thing they've ever done. They didn't do it again because it's still hard every single time. It's hard. Every single time it's a Veda. And Rabbi Wolf says he always has hardships with this whole thing because it's controversial. You are going against the majority. You're going against the establishment. You're going against what everybody else thinks in their mind. And when you do that, it's very scary. So what he gets a lot of the Rebbe, he has a lot of stories of Igris, of Oyel, a lot of stories with the Rebbe, how the Rebbe is showing him how he's doing the right thing constantly. Whenever he has fakis, the Rebbe is showing him that he's doing the right thing. Anyways, so one thing as to why I think it happens, obviously it's not the best thing to happen, but it happens because, like my Shvai said, I'm the bad guy for saying Yechi, even though that is the Aveda. Why am I the bad guy? Right? And it's more reactionary than this is, right? It's more about we react to the way we live our lives, essentially, right? We're living our lives with this imminent and this constant need of this is what we got to do. And your reaction, the way you react to that, the way you treat me is, I'm the one that has my head on off, right? I'm the one that's crazy. No, and that's where it comes from.
Okay, yeah, I totally hear you on that. Reb Simcha, you there? Should I first give some responding thoughts, or let's hear you? You've been waiting very, very, very patiently all this time. Please go ahead.
Anyways, how's everybody doing? Good, Baruch Hashem. So a lot of points, there's not tradition, they were said already, but one point that was on my mind, which Levi spoke about at the end, is people, while we like to think of ourselves as sophisticated thinking machines who compute everything logically and cannot be fooled by anything that is very sad, very far off the mark. And as we've seen from the past few years in particular, but in general, through looking through history, people are going to believe whatever is mainstream, by and large. And it'll be near impossible to convince anyone of something that is not what most people believe already, what he's hearing from reputable sources. That's a fact. You see throughout COVID, no matter how many times they lied and changed their mind every 2 seconds, if it was mainstream, people believed it. If it wasn't mainstream, people didn't believe it. You walk outside right now, because it's mainstream to be confused about genders, everyone's confused about what's a gender. No one has a clue. Why? Because that's the mainstream thing. Even though this is the most simple, obvious thing that this is the Rambam example about something that's a shvua shav because it's so obvious. And yet there are so many people now in the street that don't have a clue. I don't think you could find a bigger example than that. But bringing it back to our topic at hand, you can try and spend all day and night trying to convince individual people of your points. And by and large, I found people don't have a very good answer. They'll just spit back some stupid things in your face that don't really sufficiently address your concerns. But the real concern is, if what you're saying is true, then my father is wrong, my mashpia is wrong, my Rosh Yeshiva is wrong, all the shluchim are wrong, and you're the only guy who figured it out. Kakafanyam. That is by and large the problem. I'm not trying to fix it, but that's the problem. And if you want the masses, certainly talk to people, but if you want the masses to accept what you're saying, it needs to be from reputable sources, the mainstream thing to do. That's one point that I wanted to make. Another point, and this was also mentioned in a certain sense, that the Rebbe gave over the job to us. We're assuming the Rebbe is going to do it. Well, the truth of the matter is the Rebbe told us in very emphatic terms that he is not doing it. The Rebbe said, I'm living in the Gula world. I'm ready for the Gula. That's not a problem. You're not ready for the Gula. And while we may have hoped, or I think even the Rebbe may have hoped at some point, that the MBD and Avram Fried version of Mashiach will unfold, the Rebbe told us it's not going to happen that way. And in Chayesara, the Rebbe said, we need to make it our personal responsibility, lahavi limaisa Mashiach. That means it needs to be the personal responsibility of every individual person upon awakening, that when you wake up today, I'm going to bring the Geula, Yemaisa Mashiach, says the Rebbe, not just the Yemaisa Mashiach, Lashon Yachid, Lashon Rabin, and not just the way Mashiach is B'chatzchis Mashiach, but the way Mashiach is V'adai. We till now had a perspective. We're following the Rebbe. We don't know the full plan. The Rebbe does. The Rebbe told us to go on shlichus. We're going to go on shlichus. The Rebbe told us to put tefillin on Yidden. We're going to put tefillin on Yidden. The Rebbe told us to learn Kol Terakula and dance every day about it. We're going to do it. Why? We don't know what. It's all pieces of a puzzle. And the Rebbe is the one who sees the whole picture. And he's feeding us the inyanim that we should lead to the Gula. The Rebbe told us, I'm checking out. I'm done. The pieces of the puzzle are complete. Now it's your job to actually go into the Gula. The Rebbe told us, I'm telling you, believe me, don't believe me. The fact is, the Gula is here b'pashtas. The Gula is downloaded into the world. It's in a zip file, and it's your job to extract it. Start living Gula life. I can't do anything to help you. I can give you the tools, but you need to do this yourself. It needs to be we have to feel like it is our personal responsibility to bring the Gula. Actually, the Rebbe's not doing it. So the shliach, who my father mentioned before, he couldn't comprehend that. He said, "Well, if we're done the birurim, then welcome, Rabbi Wolfstone. If we're done the birurim, then wait a minute, the Rebbe should be taking us out of Galus. So what are we doing?" The Rebbe sent him there. He was doing the job the Rebbe sent him to do, and now they can't be over. Where the Rebbe said was exactly the opposite. We were Messiah in the shlichus. We did finish the shlichus. It's a whole new stage now. It's a unique thing. And that's very scary. And that assumes a lot of responsibility. Much more responsibility than I think any of us is really comfortable taking upon ourselves. And yeah, whatever. That's another point I wanted to make. That's what the Rebbe really does demand from us, to actually that's part of what it means to open your eyes, to start living Gula. That is the mission, to realize that the Gula is in the world. That was the Rebbe's point of Mishpatim. The Rebbe says, I'll prove to you the Gula is in the world. Look at the UN. Look what's going on in Washington. I'll prove to you right now the Gula is downloaded into the world. You don't believe me. You think we're still in Gullus. Says the Rebbe, it's not true. I mean, technically we're in Gullus, but the whole reality of the Gula is in the world, and it's up to us. Whatever is going to come to pass in the mind, whatever we want to. Where is it? Give me a second. I'll find it. It's a quote on the passport. It's Gavaldik.
While you're looking it up, let me just ask you real quick: is it possible that this is also part of the trick? We maybe blame it on the Satan or the last try of Golus to trick us back into Golus. The trick is we think that the main action or the only action or the specific things that the Rebbe says clearly in the Sichos, those are the things that we need to live by and start living by Mashiach. But when it comes to a fellow Chassid who's still stuck in their own Golus, we get tricked by that. Like, no, that's not part of what we need to do. They need to be on board already. They need to already be with us. They need to already understand how we understand.
Again, that's true. This is already pratim how to do it. But
Right.
First, trying to understand. But if you look at here's a quote on the passport from Rabbi Eisenhower. He says, what America hopes to bring to pass in the world must first come to pass in the heart of America. I think it's a very important point that the Rebbe was saying is central to Lahavdil, to bring in the Gula. The Gula is in the world, but if we want to make that happen, it needs to come to pass in our hearts. We have to have a Gula Pratis. If we want to have, why is it so important that we should open our eyes? We need to first open our eyes, and then the Rebbe will come and build the Beis Mikdash and have Kibbutz Galit. There's no more steps that have to happen. There's nothing more on a checklist of things that need to occur before we'll be ready for the Gula. We're ready right now. We're ready 30 years ago. We're waiting for us to go over the threshold. Now, this is not a very simple concept. It's a concept that you have to think about. You have to really understand. And the only proper way for this to happen is everyone's fabraging about this. Everyone's talking about it. You're living in a reality where all of the people you know and respect, your mashpiyim, your sheshivas, your father, your family structure, the school, is all focused on making this a real thing happening. You're not some guy who's like arguing with his friends about whether or not it matters who Mashiach is. It's like, if this is where we're holding, whatever. Anyways, Chaim.
Yeah, if this is what we're holding, we have business to take care of, like serious business to get to. Yeah, valid point. So just a quick thought before I want to pass the mic to the Pinchas who joined us. Shkoyach for joining in real quick. But I just wanted to give some thoughts to Levi and also to some things that Rebbe Lazar told us and also some things that Simcha added. First thing that comes to mind is 100%, it's definitely very hard, and I think it tricks us. It tricks our Chassidish psyche in a very, very hard to resist kind of way. There's this kind of mental trick that happens to us, and we're almost powerless to it. And each one of us, myself included, when it comes and hits us in a curved ball kind of unexpected way, we trip and we fall into it all over again. What happens? Is that, but I know that Chassid, he was my brother. He was there by the Rebbe all those years. I can't, how could he possibly? Or a Chassid who outright says, it's kenish sein, right? Avodas habirurim finished kenish sein. No, it's impossible. Or a Chassid who said to'isi. Or a few of the other things that I'm not remembering offhand now that Rebbe Lazar mentioned, like things that make it really, 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 really hard. Like, how are you supposed to deal with that? How could you not go crazy? How could you not say, Ribono shel olam, kofer mamash, or how could you feel it? Absolutely. It's very, 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 very hard. I think the closest comparison to that sort of thing is anyone, Baruch Hashem, I'm not familiar with this. I hope to never be familiar with this. But anyone who is familiar with the concept of having a household member, particularly a child, who decided to go on their own derech, that is so-called off the derech, and how difficult it is to not have the knee-jerk reactions to that, and instead to accept and to love and to invite them back and to keep open conversation with them. That is perhaps the closest example that I can find to this idea of, on the one hand, how could this possibly, oisvorf, how dare you renege everything that I educated you for and that I invested so much time and money and effort and sleepless nights on you, my son, my child, my daughter. How could you do this to us, blah, blah, blah. And on the other hand, you have to shut up. You have to suffer it. You have to shut your mouth. You have to put a smile on your face and be like, Sure, my son, my daughter, I love you so much. You're welcome anytime. And you have to swallow if they're smoking. And you have to swallow if they're doing drugs. And you have to swallow if they shave their beard or if they're not wearing a sheitel. And you have to swallow and you have to swallow and you have to swallow. And yeah, you know, you go into a room and you go crazy. You scream, you bang the walls, but you come out and you deal with them and deal with them with a smile. So maybe in our Nidun Didan, it looks a little bit something like this. On one hand, we go to our therapist, our Chassidish therapist, and we smack him in the face. I can't stand this. How could a chassid that I knew that all the years that the Rebbe says clearly in his words, and then you turn to the other side and you deal with the shliach, you deal with the chassid. How are you doing today? What's going on with your Chabad house? Oh, you spoke to your community about Parshas Va'era. And to yourself, you're thinking, and he didn't even mention Moshiach, the whole Nikud about. Oh, very, very nice, beautiful. It's so nice. Yes, you're doing great in your community. You're making progress. You're teaching them about Inyanim from the Rebbe, but it's Inyanim from the Lameds, from the Mems. It's not even, yeah. Oh, wow, your mamash, you're teaching them the Rebbe's teachings. You're showing them how to live life. Amazing. I'll talk to you again next week. Next week, Moshiach has to come now. Take off me out. What's going on over here? We can't deal with this. This is going to take forever. It's impossible to talk to these people. Next week. Hello, how's it going? I want to, you want to follow up the conversation with them. You want to bring with them again. You want to slowly but surely, little by little. Hey, can we sit down? Can we learn a sikha? Whatever sikha you want. Which sikha do you want to learn? This one, Chelik Aleph. Chelik Aleph we did back in the Lameds and the Chaf. Oh, okay, fine. Chelik Aleph. We're ignoring the Nun Aleph, Nun Beis. Yeah, okay, fine. Chelik Aleph, Chelik Beis, Chelik Gimel, Chelik Daled. And 15 years down the line, you finally get to Nun Aleph Nun Beis. I'll bet you, if you do this kind of approach with them, with patience, with Avos Yisrael, and with, they will eventually come to you and say, no, so why aren't you telling me already to take out a Nun Aleph Nun Beis? I know that's what you're after. They'll tell you already. They'll bring you to the table. I have some personal stories of journeys like this that I've had the honor of going through. That were impossible, that everyone in Lubavitch was claiming, forget about it. The Meshachistim were saying impossible, and the Antis were like, forget about it. I went myself in person, and I tried, and I attempted, and I succeeded. So far, I haven't had that many of those stories, but anytime that I said, I'm not going to listen to what everyone else is telling me, I'm going to go try it myself. I tried it myself, and it works. It takes time, it takes effort. It's frustrating because I want them to already know what's true, but I tried it. Why? Just a final thought. I was personally getting a little bit suicidal, so to speak. What do I mean by that? Not mamash literally suicidal, but I looked at the situation with Mashiach, with Lubavitch, with this machlekes, and I said, you know what? Everyone is telling me this is a forget about it situation anyway. It's not going to happen anyway. It's whatever. This is kfira mamash, but we're talking the elephants on the table here now, okay? I'm going to grow old and I'm going to die and I'm going to be buried in a cemetery before any of this is going to move anywhere. Meshachistim are going to Meshachist, Antis are going to Ant, and this is how it's been for so many years, and this is how it's going to, so it's forget about it anyway, okay? So if it's forget about it anyway, and I'm not going to subscribe to be specifically Dafka and Anti, and I'm not going to subscribe to be specifically a Meshachist, then why don't now I'm free, I can do anything I want. Okay, well then I'm going to try something weird or different or new. I'm going to go face the situation and talk to the guy, even though you're not supposed to talk to the guy. But the guy is talking kfira. And you know what? Someone mentioned, yeah, it's very, very painful when we see a fellow chassid who's but still, here in Lubavitch, this is the way we do things. You mean mikarevas. You turn to one side, then you will scream at the wall, bang your head, turn to the other side, and deal with it. Anyway, I'm rambling too much now. Reb Pinchas, I already rabbled Reb Pinchas out of the group already, rambling too much. I guess I'm going to open up all the mics at this point and open it up to anyone who wants to add some last thoughts. And let's wrap this up for now. I think it's something we should do generally. We should do like once a week, once every 2 weeks. I think, like someone mentioned, even the mere fact that we have to get into this and we have to bring about it and we have to talk about it, and that gets us into actually Geula Dikait, then we should do this more often. Anyway, one final thought.
L'chaim Eden, I think this is Pashat It's like a beautiful thing. I think this is mamish what the Rebbe would want. Chassidim getting together with Abbas Yisrael, with Abbas Chassidim, discussing it, hashing it out in the Eif and Nago Kavod Zalazah. I would be interesting to have Taka Hidra Pinchas, because he seems to be having an alternate point of view, or I'll call upon him, he understands the alternate point of view. But you know, the Rebbe says the machshava, even before you do it, the fact that we're Mashiach, we're talking about it, just it's like the opposite what the Rebbe says about Eretz Yisrael, that the other way, that even just talking about Chas v'Shalom, giving up Shtachim is putting Yidden in Sakana. It's the exact opposite by Mashiach. Just talking about Mashiach, just trying to figure it out, that already makes the pu'ula that could bring it. So I think this is mamish giving the Rebbe Nachas. Even just this hour, what we're sitting here, giving an hour of a time, hashing it out. And I think, I'm hoping in Mir Tashem, I think I put a little clip. I think it would be very gleich if we maybe let's take a talk how we're talking about publicizing. Let's take a call upon Chassidim Yisrael, a Kama Chassidim Yisrael to join from that chat. I think it would be very rich if we had, not we're looking for opposing point of view, but good to hear, it makes your point when you have to prove your point. It could be mechazik you. So I think it will be a gleich. I think maybe we should make a goal, perhaps, for next, let's say whatever, whatever next week, if we could make a goal of having 10 Yidden. The Rebbe spoke about a Chassidim Yisrael, so maybe we could either individually the people we know, or on the chat to make I don't know if you want to make a flyer or something, or a Facebook, or I don't know if you want to make it somewhere important, you don't want to make it into Zoom. Whatever it is, to get us started, I think that's an attainable goal. We have like 5-6 chavra. Let's get 10 chavra. And let's start with that, and then maybe it could become an Inyan Geret, even b'derech hateva. If we get 10 people, then 20, then 30, and and I think now talking like the Total campaign, people are learning Counter-Space Rabbeinu, which there are pretty obvious. I could see a way for this to happen, for the Rebbe soldiers to get mobilized, and we should tackle do it. So I think this is a very gleich chazach, and Baruch Hashem, zechinu, to be part of this tackle. We should realize how lucky we are that, from all the people in the world, we could have been Daimon, we could have been Tzimeach, we was in a Medaberim, we was in a Yidden, and a Chassidim, and from the Chassidim, we're from Chevra, who hopefully will be everyone who are trying to, I don't know
if anybody called it, but it's a hakel. I put the sticker on there.
All right, hakel, all right. Yeah, it's a hakel. I guess that's in the category of it goes without saying. When you together, yeah, but it's now we said it, the holiday. So it went without saying till now. It's a hakel like a ball name of Sheikh Tukenu. Very nice. I'm proud to be among this brotherhood. Makes me very proud. Okay, but let's get a Chassidim Yisrael. I'll call upon him. It's gonna it should be that'll be a gleich chazach. All right, good.
100%.
Right.
Yeah, everyone, feel free to bring in at least one more guy. There's 5 of us here.
One more guy.
Every one of us bring one more guy for next time. We'll do it maybe mamash in 1 week. So maybe I guess it's already Purim. Okay, I guess we'll be in touch on the chat when we'll exactly.
Who's the 5th guy? Who's E, by the way? Who's E?
Whoever it is.
I think it's also a gleich chazach. People are sometimes, a little bit literally camera shy, but I think it's a very gleich chazach that we should encourage people to put your video on.
I think that the more they see us being like, tachas afan tish and talking on camera, the more it'll encourage others to voice what they have to say. Yeah.
It's good also. People always say this isn't the time or the place. We're making a time and a place. The Fedish to discuss all of those things now. Jetzt ist the Zeit. Now we're talking about whatever. We're talking about this now. Whatever it is. So let's let's get up. It'll be good.
Yes.
Yeah.
And as I of course love having the final word, but I will stay tuned if anyone else has another final word. My final fatalistic thought is at some point. It's always true that right now, Moshiach is coming any second right now. That's always been true, and that always continues to be true. There is also apparently in the Rebbe's Sichos mention of, so how come it didn't come yet? Like a cheshbon nefesh to look back and see, noch a tog, noch a tog, noch a vach, noch a vach, noch a yar, And now we're saying 30 years as if it's, oh yeah, it's 30 years. It's like a Shreya Gewalt. And so I permit myself at this point, maybe by 10 years, we shouldn't speak this way. Maybe by 20 years, I don't even think that's true. Even 1 year, even 1 day, we should have already. But for some reason, I now feel that we reached this milestone that we're already starting saying with 30 years. I feel open to say, if we want to continue being right, here's what happens. Here's where we are today. If we want to bring Mashiach, and we know that it might be very hard for another chassid who we consider an anti, it might be very hard for him to take upon and accept and live by these inyanim. Look how hard it is for us to get around how right we are and to get over that and to get past that and to be kaisheya our own merits and our own conviction to be able to tell another chassid in a friendly way and in a mekarevdika way to help them get into look how hard it is for us. So it's not just on them. It's easy to see the negative on someone else, but it's hard to see on ourselves what we need to do to make it happen. So I strongly encourage whoever wants to continue the same old pattern we've been doing for the past 30 years, good luck. Let's see where we go with that. But whoever wants to try to get some better results, let's maybe try to shift around how we usually operate. But go ahead. Anyone else who wants to say anything, please go ahead.
In your path of being nice to everyone and making friends, how does that lead to, how do I get from there to everyone doing how does that get everyone on board? What's the process?
It does work. It does work one by one. The Rebbe only expects from you to do what you can do. And from there, if it takes even just one yid that sincerely, fully does everything he can, even one yid is enough for the Rebbe to say, that's it, I'm bringing Moshiach now. So there's both. There's a balance of, on the one hand, we need to have
we could all hope that will happen. It just doesn't appear from the Rebbe Sikhs that that's what he was asking to happen. He wanted the whole army of Shluchim to transform through whole Amo. That's what he asked to happen.
And then also the Rebbe says that Ein et zwei drei or 10, almost as if it's mashma, that the Rebbe knows that not everyone is going to be a Mashiach. It's almost as if the Rebbe predicted
that was earlier. That was a half a year before the Rebbe changed the name of the game and said that now Mashiach did come, and now we have an entirely new job to do. You could say, in a certain sense, and I think this is hopeful, that when the Rebbe says it's all the Hevel V'Ladik, he doesn't know what to do, and he's giving it over to us, the Rebbe's problem there, if you look in the Sikha, was that Mashiach didn't come yet. And then the Rebbe comes to us in Parashat Vayera Chayesara and tells us that we were Achein successful and Mashiach did come. So I think we fixed that problem the Rebbe had then. We fixed it.
I hear that. Arguably, I could say, hey, in some conversations, we are referring to Chav Ches Nissen like it is useful and convenient. In other conversations, we say, oh, no, we could dismiss Chav Ches Nissen because we already passed that.
The concept is certainly still applicable that we have to all we can, but we've moved further along. We've made progress since then. The Rebbe's unique problem there was that the Mashiach didn't yet come, and that particular hurdle we have in a very big way overcome. Now we have another problem to deal with, that Mashiach didn't take us out of Golos, but that's the next step. And certainly the same logic applies that we must do all we can. That's without a doubt.
So if the Rebbe says in the Sikha that all Shluchim should such and such and such, does that immediately make that every Shliach already did such and such and such? Or the Rebbe gave the directive, the instruction, now it's up to those Shluchim to do it. And there could be a possibility maybe that Ein et zwei drei did it, maybe even Sen did it, and maybe even more did it, but not necessarily all of them. And sure, it's like a Shreya Gewalt. It's shouldn't be that way. The Rebbe says what to do. They should do it. There's a little bit of the factor here of us pointing at someone else, though. It's like we're finding a disadvantage or something wrong by someone else. The Baal Shem Tov says if we see something wrong by someone else, we should realize that it's by us. So in what way are we not fulfilling the Rebbe's Hayrah? By going and timing, hey, look, you shliach over there, you're not doing what the Rebbe says in Chayesar. Hey, look, you shliach over there. Hey, all of those shluchim over there. In what way are we maybe not fulfilling the Rebbe's Hayrah by doing that? And a better question is, what is the best next step we could possibly do, thinking ahead, thinking future, thinking optimistic and positive? What could we do other than banging the truth over and over again, what can we do to bring ourselves to that situation? Because it must be that it is possible. The Rebbe foresees and tells us it is possible, and it must be that we could do something to get us there. In my personal humble opinion, or not so humble opinion, I don't know if banging the truth on them works. It hasn't worked so far, and in my humble opinion, it's not going to work. Maybe we could keep going that way and keep arguing and debating and saying they should, and maybe it'll work tomorrow, because it hasn't worked all these 30 years, but maybe it'll work tomorrow. But in my humble opinion, going and working in the purview that we can, the people that we can affect, the circles that we can, this Farbrengen that we're starting to do here right now, we could brainstorm some more ideas. What if we do once a week, interviewing one shliach, bringing him to the table and testing the waters of opening up a frank conversation on the topic. And you know what? Maybe not going there so fast right away, maybe going little by little, step by step, first starting off with general, how is shlichus going? How are things going? What do you think about this? What do you think about that? And hearing all of his kfira, and hearing all of his the terrible things that he says about the Eibishter, about the Rebbe, and about the Sichos, and about Moshiach, and tolerating it.
You're saying we should do kiruv.
Yes.
I think people get stuck often on this Nakuda. So you're saying we shouldn't do mitzvahs anymore? It's like, hold it. We don't do mitzvahs because of shlichus. Mitzvahs do because the Eibishter told us to do mitzvahs. We will always be doing Torah mitzvahs. And if there will ever be somebody who's not, it will always be our job to help them out. There's a separate Nakuda of what's the unique mission to bring the Gula. It's a separate, what Shluchim are doing is Gavaldik, and Mesiris Nefesh and Gerim Nachasuach Rav, and it's Gavaldik. There's another question: are they bringing the Gula? I don't know, but it's two different things.
Look, if we want to face them with the truth and say, "Hey, you're not able to face this truth," are we able to face our own truth? How difficult is it?
That's an important Nakuda, and I think certainly a practical thing that we can do to enable when we ourselves will be living more Mashiach and Gula conscious ourselves, that will certainly, the more it becomes internalized by us, will enable us to share the message with others in a way that they will be more open to accepting it. That's a very practical, real, and effective thing that we can all do. I'm not going to say easily, but we can all do.
Yeah, this is my Meshugane clickbait title article of Meshichists are the real antis, and antis are the real Meshichists. Why are the Meshichists the real antis? Because we've, in a sense, given up on Mashiach being a cool, interesting, amazing thing that we want. It's just a fiery thing that we need to tell everyone and push on everyone. But wait a minute, do you really like Mashiach? Do you like the idea? Do you know what it's all about? Do you really care for it? Are you going to really, how is it going to affect Mamash in a way like tomorrow you're going to get a new phone that you're so excited about? Or we're going to make some parnasa for an avrech and make money, or so, a business opportunity, or exciting, juicy political thing that's going on with the vaccines, or with politics, or the votes, or Trump, or I don't know what. Those are things that are like in our life, and we enjoy and we koch in them. And why is Moshiach such a fun, big deal? Well, so far, the thing that I'm gleaning is that it's a big deal because it's so fun to be right. That's what Mashiach is. It's so fun to be right. And it's right because we know it's right, because it's the Rebbe, and the Rebbe is obviously the Rebbe, and it's the Rebbe's Sichos. Mashiach is a fun ride of being right. And I don't know if everyone likes that kind of Mashiach. Maybe people could be like, you know what? I don't feel like that's a fun party for me. I don't know if that's something that I'm interested in. We could do a lot in getting into the real deal, what really Mashiach is about, become a real Mashiachist, which every anti we might find actually is also. And we are too, but we have to get on that track. Anyway, Chaim L'chaim. Anyone else?
Chaim L'bracha.
Chaim L'bracha.
Good. All right, shkoyach everyone for participating, and we'll be back next time, and let's make this a bigger and bigger success, Mirza Hashem. An hour and a half, it's not too bad, it's good. Shkoyach Levi for being the spearhead. Like I said, people have hesitations coming on camera, and you were the Nachshon ben Aminadav, so we really, really appreciate it. Many years.
I
just want to be
very important. I think
it says it's being recorded here. We should post the link to wherever this is being recorded.
Yeah, for sure. If it's going to be an online file or if it gets downloaded, I'm not sure how it works, but yeah, whatever it is, if it's going to come up on my end or on your end, Levi, do it. Share the link, share the file, whatever it is. And okay, good. Shkoyach everyone, and we'll see you next time.